It's alright. How's the vibe? Yeah, it's alright. Yeah, my new outfit's alright. DJ gonna deck playing hits, it's alright. Hi everybody, welcome back to the Alright Podcast. I'm your host C4, and with me I have three lovely guests, and we're just gonna get to know their story, and we're gonna talk about COVID-19 because that's what's happening right now. So without further ado, I want to introduce my first guest, Reese, aka Odd Priest. Can you just...
Greetings.
Yep.
Yeah, so I'm Reese, aka the Odd Priest, and yeah, basically, I'm a musician, singer-songwriter from Birmingham. I'm currently the artistic associate of Birmingham Opera Company as well. Father, husband. I am Christian as well. Have a firm and strong belief in the Christian faith, and really just trying to tackle how this new norm is going to really affect our mental status when we get back into whatever the working world is going to be like out there. So that's me.
Nice to meet you, Reese. Well, I know you anyway, but yeah, let's not pretend.
We'll play the game. We'll play the game.
So nice to have you on the podcast anyway, Reese.
That's a blessing. Thank you.
Yeah. Naomi, would you like to just tell the people about yourself?
Yeah, I'm Naomi. I live in South Birmingham, sort of Bourneville, Cottridge area. I'm a community architect and work at the custard factory normally, but obviously at the moment working from home. Luckily, I'm not on the front line or anything, so I am able to do it. But I've got 3 kids and my husband works full time as well, so it's really full on at the moment, trying to do that. So I'm a community architect, so I'm really interested in social value. Most of my clients are third sector, so I see it all, and I mostly work in the West Midlands, particularly Birmingham. So I know quite a lot of Birmingham communities through work. And then I do quite a lot in my own local community. I sort of think you've got to put your money where your mouth is. If you see other people stepping up to taking action in their community, you know, you should as well. And I am the kind of person who just gets on with it. I'm not political really at all, you know, and I just one of these people who just prefers to get on with stuff and get going on stuff. I've just started a charity as well, but it's all about children's independence, which at the moment is like the opposite to what. So it's hopefully we'll get really back on track with that once you know, lockdowns. It's mostly about their independence in nature. So hopefully as things start to gradually improve, getting out into nature will be like a first priority.
Okay, nice to meet you, and I definitely want to speak about the home life and how is everything going with the kids and all of that, so we'll touch on that in a bit. And last but not least, we have Cameron. I hope I pronounced that right.
Yeah, Kamran, that's fine.
Kamran, sorry.
You say Cameron.
Ooh, what's that?
Okay, so my name is Kamran Hussain. I'm the CEO of Green Lane Mosque and Community Centre, based in Small Heath, Birmingham. I'm a former chartered accountant, but I've been working in the industry for about 30 years, and about 18 months ago decided to move into the charity sector in my role. Like I said, I've been in the role for about 18 months now, so it's all new for me at the moment. The Green Lane Mosque and Community Centre, quite a well-known and established institute in Birmingham. We're one of the biggest mosques in the UK, in one of the most diverse and deprived areas in the UK as well. From the mosque, we run about 40 diverse, discrete activities, everything from youth and social activities, welfare services to education, as well as the mosque activities and our social campaigns that we run every year. In terms of reputation, we're well known internationally. We have about 750,000 people following us on Facebook. We have about 100,000 subscribers on YouTube, and we're very well connected with the, should we say, Islamic clergy worldwide. So, you know, we're quite well known from that perspective. But yeah, I've been, you know, very hugely impacted by the whole COVID pandemic, having to close the mosque and a lot of our activities. So we've been involved in over this short period.
Okay, So even just to touch on what you just said just then, it's very important because we've all come from different walks of life. We've all got different families, different upbringings, and I think it's really important just to kind of explore everyone's the changes that have been made basically due to the COVID-19. So I'd like you to continue. I was definitely interested.
Well, yeah, I mean, we're probably most well known for our Celebrate Eid event. That's just one of our 40 activities, where we have about 60 to 80,000 people attending Eid prayer in Small East Park, which happens twice a year.
Okay.
So that's one of the first casualties of this whole pandemic.
Yeah.
That's had to be cancelled this year. And in fact, we were one of the first mosques to close down. We closed down about a week before the actual lockdown. That was a huge decision for us to take. And we were about to close down earlier, but we wanted to get some sort of consensus with a load of other mosques as well, so that people wouldn't just stop going to one and going to another. So we're trying to, but what we realized through that was a lot of the other mosques were asking for some leadership. So they wanted, one major mosque to come out and close so that they could then say to their congregations, look, that mosque is closed, so we can now close. So we took that unprecedented step in our history because we've been open since 1979 and we've never closed for a single day over that period.
Wow.
So this is really unprecedented. This is completely new territory for us. And it's probably one of the saddest decisions we had to make. And I remember talking to some of the elders and telling them that we had to close the mosque. And, the sadness that I saw on their face when we did that, because for them, the mosque is an intricate part of their daily life and their worship. Many of them attend 3, 4, 5 times a day. For them not to have that in their life, was hugely difficult.
Yeah.
That was one of the difficult decisions we had to make. But saying that, coming out of this now, we've had to, like I said, evolve our services to see how we can better serve the community. And some of our services naturally have to stop because they have to be physical interaction, like our scouts and our coffee mornings and our cricket club and our basketball club and our football club and our scouts. All that had to stop. We were just about to go on, take about 50 people on a religious pilgrimage before Mecca was closed. So that was also one of our first casualties. But there are a number of things which we're now learning as we go along. We've managed to move a lot of our services online. For example, we have an evening school with about 430 kids. And we managed to very quickly move, 35 teachers and those 430 kids online. So, and that's been a huge success. And what we've understood from this is actually we have a greater reach and can serve the community better by going online as well.
Wow.
But also we've opened about 3 or 4 new services to help with the whole pandemic and to help the NHS as well. One of the first ones we opened was the COVID-19 delivery service, where we realized that people who are elderly or vulnerable were going to have to isolate and they were going to find it difficult to come out and do their shopping. So we immediately put a call out for volunteers, and we had about 150 volunteers come forward. And that's been running for the last 4 or 5 weeks now. We also opened a listening service, realizing that there might be people who struggle being at home all day. And that's been popular with, and that's been run through our existing counsellors and our existing GPs. One of the more popular services has been a joint campaign with a local company that produces garden furniture. And they realized that we could draw in the volunteers, and they had the expertise to actually produce PPE or change their process so that they could produce PPE for the NHS. And again, we put a call out for volunteers there, and we had 750 volunteers come forward. And this kind of highlights, the fantastic nature of our community, how people are willing to come forward and help in these difficult circumstances. And that sometimes, there is a, in the back of their mind, a risk that, by going out, they are putting themselves at risk. But so those are just some of the services. We've also been tackling a lot of pertinent issues for the Muslim community by, trying to get consensus on things like cremation and tackling those issues that have come up. And, in terms of funeral services, how we manage those, our funeral services.
I want to touch on that as well, what you're saying about the funeral side of things as well, because it has definitely affected everybody in terms of joining the service. And even I've had a family member pass recently, and just going to the funeral, it's going to be really difficult because they've not been able to, we can't gather as a large community basically to attend the funeral. So I definitely want to get back to you about that as well. I want to open a conversation up and just kind of get everyone's views on what's been going on. You've just shared, Cameron, how you've had the community support and a lot of people have come forward, volunteered. So Naomi, have you had any experience in terms of the community, and has anything happened for you similar or different? Let us know.
A much more micro level. So, but there was that kind of weekend where it all suddenly changed a bit. When I remember I went up to see a client in the Lake District on the Friday, and the train was a bit quieter. And even from when I left in the morning, I wasn't really doubting whether I should go. But by the time I came home, that night was on the news. It had suddenly kind of got big. And I'd already ran a WhatsApp group with my street, and there was probably about 20 people on the WhatsApp group, because we regularly arrange street closures where we, close to traffic and have a party. We've been doing that for a couple of years anyway. And that WhatsApp group was just for volunteers because we do the street closures. But I just turned to my husband and I said, I should use this WhatsApp group to be just a general group for us to all get together and help people out. And so I sort of sent to the group, like, let's do a leaflet drop this weekend. I didn't have a printer, but I quickly typed something out and just said, let's all come together to support each other. Some of you, and even by the time we sent it out on the Sunday, people were being told to self-isolate and stuff. So we got that out, and very quickly we had loads more people join the WhatsApp group. We've now got 80 people on the WhatsApp group out of, I think there's 84 households, but there's obviously more than one people in some households. And immediately everyone's response was amazing, like offers of help, shopping for each other, so many, and then a few people coming forward and said, yeah, I'm already self-isolating, like I'm having cancer therapy or something, and I've got, I really can't go out. Yeah. And I remember the funny thing was the following Tuesday, and funny, but it was all right because he wasn't unwell, but my son got a fever. So we suddenly had to, as a household, do 14 days isolation. So I didn't think it was going to be us needing help. But I put a message on the group. We'd run out of milk or something, and I just said, it was eggs. I don't suppose anyone's got some eggs. And within 25 minutes, I had 12 eggs from 3 different neighbours on my doorstep. Just like, this is better than Amazon Prime, just how keen people were to help. And since then, every day there's just masses of messages. Every time someone's going to the shop, they sort of say, or pharmacy collections. And then it sort of diversified a bit into things like Zoom bingo sessions between the kids, or everyone leaving books that they've read on their, garden wall, and you can go along and swap books. And nice. We've had, plants. People are growing plants and doing their off-cut, putting little off-cuttings. But then another thing that happened was that somebody, because there's a bit of a wider Bourneville COVID response unit that's been coordinated, and they've been identifying on every single street someone called a street champion who can sort of look out for people on their street and do this. And something I was aware of, that some of the households who weren't on our WhatsApp group were the people who were the most isolated because they don't have internet. So we carried on doing leaflet drops with phone numbers as well. But then somebody from the Bourneville Centre contacted me and said that she'd had a call from someone in Yorkshire, and her uncle lived on our street, and she was really worried because he hadn't eaten for 3 days. This was about a week in. And so, she said, I don't know exactly where he lives. I'm going to find out the details. But I put just a message out on the WhatsApp group just saying, can we immediately get some food for him? I had 4 big, I was still self-isolating, so I couldn't take it, but I could arrange for it to be collected and somebody else to take it down. And 4 big bags full of food went down to his house like an hour and a half later. Wow. And I've phoned him in the in-between and just checked, if he was okay, and that, and anything in particular he needed. And he was so grateful, and he explained that he's partially sighted, so he's really limited. So he can't use internet. He was in his late 70s and has got health issues, and has had a letter to say, you must not go out, and was really struggling. So we got that food to him, and then I put him in touch with someone who then put him in touch with social services as well. But it made me realise then, if that's what can happen just for like one guy, just on a phone call, and at the same time, I'd heard that the food bank collections had massively dropped, and our local food bank had closed because it was too much human-to-human contact.
Yeah,
but donations had gone down because of stockpiling. So what we've been doing since is regular doorstop collections. So at like midday on a Wednesday every other week, you can put a donation out on your doorstep, and there's a few of us volunteers will go and all collect it and then take it to like the central depot. And it's such little effort, but even if every household puts like a few cans out, it makes a big difference. So we're trying to do stuff for other people as well as, you know, just for ourselves. So it's been really, it makes you feel good, because I'm not a frontline worker. I can't claim to, you know, be helping in that way, but I just think, and so I've been spreading the message to other streets, getting other streets to do the same as well. So it's building up as well, which has been really positive. So sort of silver linings.
Yeah, no, definitely excellent. And you've both just given two examples of how you can help, and just the community coming together, and they're both completely different, but the heart is still there. It's similar, you know what I mean? So really positive. I definitely think my street needs to be doing something similar as well. So I'll be having a word. So Reece, what's been your experience? I'm sure
it's crazy, because I'm somewhere in between both yourself, Naomi, and you, Kamran, in a sense of there's been micro effect and macro effect. So the micro effect would start basically just in my home, and I know that may seem to some who don't really have a heart for a situation like this, that can come across quite trivial, but it's so interesting what you learn just from the people who are in your household when you take the time out to stop running and remember what it feels like to walk, and not just allow life to pass you by. I've learned so much about both of my boys. Scary things, as well as just scary in a sense of they're just growing and there's nothing we can do about it. But one of an amazing positive has just been able to take some time out with my wife, and that is not based around my schedule coming back from work, her schedule coming back from work, tea thrown in the oven because there's no time to cook with any passion for either of us. And you know, just these little things now. I mean, even date nights now have become take the laptop out to the car. You know what I mean? And it's been wonderful. It's been wonderful having the conversations that we negate having when we're in the hustle and bustle of the everyday life. So far be it for me to say that COVID-19 and this whole pandemic has been a blessing, but there's been blessings being able to draw out of it. So that's on a micro, and of course as well, you know, we live in a cul-de-sac, so we're very fortunate. So everybody's a pop their head out the door type of person, and you know, we've even had like little meets, but not meets. So everyone comes to their doorstep and has a chat and a shout across, and someone will have a drink and leave a drink on the doorstep, and you'd go and grab it and you text them later, thanks for that. And it's just been nice to, after everything that's been going on leading up to this pandemic worldwide, it's been nice to kind of restore your faith back into, you know, into humanity once more, and to realize that, you know what, there are pockets of us that can coexist with no issues. Even just like as a microcosm of that, this podcast, you know, effectively 4 people who don't know each other are able to share very similar value and very similar principle when the going gets really, really tough. On a macro, I'd say, specifically for my work, because my work is very creatively based, and to be honest with you, 90% of my job was out the office and going and meeting with people. So artistic associate at Birmingham Apple Company allowed me to kind of broach conversations with people, to put on performance, curate pieces, whether that was going to listen or whether that was actually creating something from scratch, working with theatres, singers, the whole shebang. Of course, now my job looks so much more administrative than anything. So I've been taken completely out of my comfort zone. But what we have done is, because we're very community facing charity, which means that we very rarely employ professional artists. We do sort of like a for you, by you type thing, for the people, by the people. And the piece that we were working on up until now, actually, funnily enough, was literally going to be like 150 volunteers who their only thing that they did was come and have a sing song with us, come and have a bit of acting with us. And that's been, sadly, the rug has been kind of shunted from underneath them. So what we've had to do, in a similar strategy to yourself, Cameron, is we've just set up Zoom just seems to be the word of the moment. but we've set up things where, you know, I'm dancing around my house and people can see and just copy. I mean, but we've gone from the lengths of just morning meditations and thought for the day, all the way up to reciting and having even little mini concerts where we get some of our professional artists who we do have to jump into a meeting and just sing a couple of aria, sing a couple of songs, and the look and the relief on people's face to just be like, oh gosh, there's a little bit of that thing that I've been missing. And you know, with opera, we know that the clientele is probably like an older group, age group. So the relief that it brings them a level of comfort that, of course, the whippersnappers can run around and get things done. Not to say that it's any less frustrating, but when that power is taken away from you, you have to operate differently. And it's a lot easier for certain groups to adjust as it is for others. And that's not to patronize anybody who's struggling, because, you know, we all have our difficulties. But I've really come to appreciate in this period of time that you really must take care of the young and old. My grandma always used to say, once a man, twice a child. And I never understood what that phrase meant until I had my youngest, and my nan being the oldest sort of matriarch of the family. And I'm like, the similarities between her being 96 and my son, who's now 5, are ridiculous. And their needs and their wants and their desires are so... They just correlate so well, even in a respect of, you know, one being thirsty for life and one holding on to the rest of the life that they've got. And it really just puts things into perspective. So a pandemic like this has affected me. The macro affects the micro, and the micro has affected the overall macro. So it's been really, really interesting, very challenging, because I'm a go-getter. You know, C4, you know, I'm always up and about doing something. But as I said, I've appreciated this period of time to sort of settle in and remember what it feels like to put one foot in front of the other and stand firmly, as opposed to kind of taking off with wings and forgetting what the land's like. Yeah. So that's sort of my story up to now.
Wow, a lot's been going on, Reese. A lot's been going on. Even stuff that you say now, I've not known myself. So it's great to hear all of these experiences as well. I've had a few people speaking about just the relationship with their children and how they're able to, you know, just see certain things that they didn't really see before, and, you know, just that quiet time and life just slowing down a bit more. So myself, I don't have any kids just yet. But obviously I will one day. Obviously it's more me spending time with my mom and my brother and sister, and just speaking to my family on the WhatsApp and all of that stuff. So the communication is similar in a sense, because obviously we're still indoors, and I work from home, so the experience for me isn't too different. But in terms of me going out to, because I teach music as well, me going out and teaching kids and doing all of that stuff as well, I'm not able to do that. But at the moment, we are building programs to teach the kids online and filming videos, tutorials, that kind of stuff. So we're just trying to find different ways to kind of do the same thing. So I think definitely it's been good. It's been challenging, but, you know, I love a challenge. So yeah. So Cameron, what you were saying before about the funeral element, could you just continue touch back on that, because I think you were saying something.
Sure, yeah. Well, we've got funeral service that's been running for many years, and recognising the high demand that there was going to be here in Birmingham, we partnered up with another major mosque, Birmingham Central Mosque, with their funeral services. And typically between us, we probably had about 5 or 6 burials a week. well, over the last few weeks, we've had on average, about 20 a week. So it's increased massively.
Wow.
And that's, I was talking about the difficult things over this period, and that was obviously one of the most difficult things over this period. So our prayers and thoughts are with the deceased, and obviously we pray that God gives their families patience and solace over this period. But I've heard many stories about our congregation members passing away. Only a couple of weeks ago, our PCC contact called me and asked if she could have her grandfather buried through our funeral service. And there was somebody a young fella who came to the centre only a couple of months ago who I was talking to, who got notified he passed away as well. So,
wow.
That's, this is obviously the sad part of the whole pandemic, and the most difficult. But yeah, the demand has been quite high. Thankfully now we're seeing a reduction. So, going back to what Bob said, it seems like we may have hit the peak, hopefully. What we don't want to risk is obviously another spike. So one of the things we've been doing is communicating out to our community, through the media and our press statements and other ways, is to make sure that, with it being the month of Ramadan, which is the most, holiest, one of the holiest months of the year for Muslims, but also one of the most social months of the year, because, people go out to pray, they go out to each other's houses to eat. Yeah. So we've been advising people to stay at home, and that, the feedback has been that everybody's adhering to the advice, and they are praying at home, and that's nothing small for our community. You have to understand, just at our centre, we have about 2,000 people attend evening prayer every night of Ramadan. Right, we feed about 300 people every day. So you can understand the amount of people that get together at these centres over this period. But thankfully, that everybody's adhering to it. They understand the risks that are involved. And the BAME community has been disproportionately affected, with the number of infected and the number of deaths. And there's a lot of theories about that at the moment, but there's no hard evidence as to why. In some cases, maybe the medical professionals are being more affected because of the fact we have a higher proportion of medical professionals from the BAME community in that field. But there's still a lot of unknown to this pandemic. We really haven't understood it.
Yeah. Thanks for sharing that. I think it's important that we all know each other's stories and we all see what's going on in different communities as well. So even if there's someone watching right now that could, I don't know, help in some way that you've all shared, it's definitely important to share these stories. Just to end on a positive note, though, we've only got a bit of time left. I wish I could speak to you guys for longer, but we've only got a short podcast today. We need to do a part 2, definitely. But I just want to kind of end on a positive note. So one thing that you would do once the lockdown's over that you really want to do right now, but you can't. So I'll leave the floor open. Who wants to go first?
Oh, God.
Go on, Naomi.
Well, I'll tell you what I'm missing most, and this might seem, it's not even something I can't particularly do. Well, I'm a keen commuter cyclist, and it sounds crazy, but I do miss my commute because I cycle into work down the Ray Valley route, so it's like through Cannon Hill Park. But often I do meet, so even though that's something I kind of could do at the moment, but it wouldn't make sense because I'm so ridiculously busy trying to pack in my working day around my husband's working day and the 3 kids. So even just going and being able to cycle into the custard factory, it's my time, that half an hour headspace. And then I love the buzz of the custard factory. And I guess it's just that whole package of my cycle commute where I disengage from home and re-engage with work, and the buzz of the custard factory and all the people around there I know, who some I don't even know their name, but we always say hello to each other. And then it's just that journey home as well, back through the, watching the sun go down as I'm cycling home. And so that's a really sad thing to say, isn't it? But I do miss that.
That sounds amazing. You know what? We've had a few cyclists on the podcast recently, so I don't know what it is about cycling, but I think I need to get involved. I feel like I'm missing out.
More cycling post-COVID. That's something I'm working on.
Yeah,
more people involved.
Yeah, definitely. I need to lose a bit of weight. I'm eating too much sweets and crisps inside, so I need to get involved. Who wants to go next?
I don't mind.
Go on, yeah, go on, Cameron.
I was going to, well, genuinely, I think we're going to come out of this with a better appreciation of life, right? Of the small things that we just take for granted for all this time, that social interaction that we have, and, going to each other's houses, having dinner, etc. I think this is actually going to create a great epiphany for us, the realization of what's really important, to help us prioritize as well. I think we're going to come out of this with a new way of working too. I think, the fact that people can work online now, working from home, etc. We've got the technology now that's going to change the dynamics of working. But I'm missing more than anything working at the mosque, and having that social interaction with the guys there. We always think, working from home is actually a bit of a pleasure. But when you've done it now for 4 weeks, I think we now start to appreciate that social interaction we get with other people at work and at the mosque, and so forth. So that's what I'm going to appreciate is that going back to the mosque, having those communal, community activities like the prayer, and just that social interaction.
Thanks for that. No, I definitely agree. I can't wait for the the proper interaction, not just the virtual interaction. And I've had a few people say that as well, so we can definitely all relate to that. Thanks for sharing that. And then last but not least,
well, I'm funnily enough, I'm releasing my first debut single tonight at midnight. So thank you very much. So one of the things that I'm really going to bring out of this season is a real drive for a can-do attitude, because in actual fact, it's only because I've had more time to do something that I've done it. But I've realized that I've had to ignite that passion from somewhere. It's had to come from somewhere. A lot of people have been creatively stifled in this season because it's very hard to create out of nothing if it's not an instinct to you. And actually what it's done for me is realize that there's more resolve in my in being creatively stifled, because that frustration drives me to do something else. So in that period of time, I've done all the stuff that I would have probably put off, the promotion, whether it be online or whatever, and the community has still supported me in that way. And I just think this is something that I should have been doing years ago, and I've decided to put off for so long. And now it's kind of a season where I'm going to come out here going, you know what? It didn't really take as much time as I thought it would, but I used this pandemic as an excuse to go, oh, well, now I've got time on my hands. I've got no more time on my hands because I'm working from home still. So it's just, I think, agreeing with both of your points, it's just something of like a positive attitude, a strength and resolve to be able to I'm just going to attack all the dreams before it's too late to do so.
I'm very happy to hear that, because I've been one of the people saying to you, you need to get back on your music.
Yeah, you have.
So yeah, we're gonna call it a night, guys. But I just want to thank you all for coming on. Really interesting stories, really lovely people, and I hope we get to speak again. So we're gonna say bye to the audience now. Thanks for locking in. Bye, everybody.
Take care, everyone.
Bye.
How's the vibe? Yeah, it's alright. Yeah, my new outfit's alright. DJ gonna playing hits, I'm like, vibes right. The vibe is